As we all know, the police has a job to protect citizens of the city that they are working in, to keep a city in order, and to also punish people when they commit a crime, like giving them a ticket or arresting them, depending on how bad the crime is. And that as citizens, that we trust in, we have to trust in policemen to keep us safe and to also protect others in our city, as from people who commit crimes, and to also lower the crime rate of a city. That is their whole point of their job, is to protect the citizens of the city that they are in. They go through physical and mental training to be able to deal with people who are committing such malicious crimes, and how to deal with them when they do not cooperate or when they are under the influence, and etc. But as time has passed on, there has been malicious acts that policemen have done towards people, and which has caused people to lose trust in them, and to also develop a fear towards policemen, that people are not able to trust a policeman to call for them when they are in need. And this fear that people have developed now was caused by policemen using deadly force towards people, which can cause many problems for that victim later on in the future. And we must stop deadly force, as it can get worse, and people will lose less trust in policemen. And we must maybe create a law, or maybe reform the police system. Now that I have shared the problem of, now I will share with you the problem of police officers using deadly force, the cause of the problem, and the solutions that we can do to end deadly force. Now let's begin with the problems. The first problem of deadly force is that people who have been victims of deadly force can develop physical issues that will later on be a problem for them later on in the future. And the Observer on June 6, 2020 provided the news report of a man who was a victim of deadly force, and he had many injuries from the deadly force. He had strange marks and bruises all over his body, and because of the physical harm that a policeman did on him, he had organ failure, and he eventually passed away because his organs failed, because of the bad conditions that he was in, because of deadly force that was used on him. And that was provided by the Observer on June 6, 2020. The second problem of deadly force is death. As I stated in the first one, physical injuries can lead to death. And the Herald on February 21, 2021 provided the news report of a woman who died in a church because a police officer was putting his knee on her neck as a neck restraint to keep her down, but this caused the lack of oxygen to go to her brain, which later on led to her passing away. And then the next problem is mental issues. The Star Phoenix on May 4th, 2021 provided a testimony of William Farrell, he was a victim of deadly force. And he stated that even though his physical injuries were healed and time passed on, he was still affected mentally and spiritually because of how he was treated, because of a tiny mistake that a police officer did, and he is just scarred for life, and his family scarred for life. And then lastly, the last problem is the police need a better education system to teach policemen on what they can do and what they can't do in certain situations. And President Biden stated that the police, he personally stated that the police system must be reformed, but it should not be removed, as if there's reformation, we can improve on how policemen are trained. That was provided by the Winston-Salem Journal on March 17, 2020. Now that I've talked about the problems, let's talk about the causes of deadly force. And the first cause is racism. As the American Medical Association stated that police brutality is a manifestation of structural racism towards people of color, like Black or Indigenous people. And as in the cases in the past of deadly force, it has been seen that people of color have been more victims of deadly force than people that are white. And this can this can be seen as racism because only people of color are being affected by deadly force, which is provided by the Impact News Service on March 18, 2020. The second cause is emotion, that policemen are driven too much by emotion while they are on the job, and they are not focusing more on what to do and what is right to do. The news text blog on August 16, 2021 provided the news, an event that occurred that a police officer saw that a Jeep was not driving correctly, so he decided to chase him. But the problem is that the police officer was chasing him in a way that put others in danger, other drivers in danger. He was driving too recklessly to try to catch this Jeep, and in the end, this police officer crashed into this Jeep, which caused the driver and the passenger of that Jeep to have injuries. And in the end, the driver was perfectly fine, and he did not drink or anything. He did not have any issues that caused him to drive poorly on the street. He was perfectly fine. And then lastly, the last cause is that policemen might have a feeling that they are much more powerful than the person that they are dealing with. We are all equal and the same, and that just because they have a title doesn't mean that someone should be treated with deadly force and should be receiving such injuries because of something they did. The NBC News from Ohio on March 31st, 2021 just provided a list of restrictions that police officers are not allowed to use, and one of those restrictions are neck restraints, and that's the most common deadly force that police officers will use. And this is just seeing the image of a police officer putting their knee on top of someone's neck just shows that they have a feeling of power, and that they are more powerful and that they are more important than the person that they are dealing with, and because they committed a crime or they have to go through that, and they have to go through that suffering. Now that I've talked about the causes, let's talk about the solutions that we can do to end deadly force. And one of the first solutions is to create a law, which can be difficult at first because many people don't believe in deadly force and that what police officers is doing correct to deal with people. So it can be hard to have people on board and to vote for a law on what policemen can do while they're on the job and what they cannot do while dealing with a person that they are trying to arrest. And then the second solution would be to reform the police system, which the first thing we can do is, as I stated, tell them what they can do and what they cannot do. Like an example, don't use neck restraints, as it caused many injuries for people in the past, and to also teach about racism and how it's not good to only target certain people, and that everyone should be treated equally by the police. Now I've talked about solutions, and now we have good solutions to end this problem. Now I have stated the problem, the causes, and the solution of this of deadly force. And deadly force should be ended as people are losing less trust and are creating a fear towards policemen, which is causing all policemen to have this image. And not all policemen are like this. Some policemen are fair and they don't have any, and they are not racist towards people. But because certain policemen do malicious acts, it is bounced off onto other policemen who are actually following what they can do and not committing any crimes or using any deadly force towards others.